Roland Fargo, or Rolly, Crump Jr., was born on February 27, 1930, in Alhambra, California, to the parents of Roland Fargo Crump Sr. and Candace Elizabeth Ivy. Raleigh always had a habit for drawing, starting around the age of 2 when his father took him to see the Three Little Pigs cartoon done by the Walt Disney Company. It was because of that cartoon that he began to gain an affinity for Walt Disney and learned that he wanted to work eventually at the Walt Disney Company. At the age of 16, he took a few Saturday classes at the Chauvinard Institute, and that would actually be the only formal training he would ever receive. One other thing he liked to do was to trace superheroes like Superman and Batman, just to learn the anatomy and how to draw it better. After high school, he found himself as a dipper at a ceramic factory. A dipper takes finished pieces and dips them into different glazes of colors or sheen. In 1952, however, at age 22, he took a pay cut to join the Walt Disney Company as an in-betweener on Peter Pan. This would be the first of the 3 jobs that he had for Disney, besides some consulting here and there. An in-betweener on a cartoon draws the in-between scenes used to smoothly transition from scene to scene. Though Raleigh would eventually have a very storied relationship with Walt, he wouldn't say a word to him for the first 3 years while at the company. After the stint as an in-betweener, he landed at WED, where he began to do small projects like the Flying Saucer project from Tomorrowland at Walt Disneyland. As you can see, his style is much different than that of the previous, very visually clean and crispness of Mark Davis, for example. He was eventually added to the ever-infamous Enchanted Tiki Room, where he would create a lot of the tiki masks, faces, and stylizing featured throughout. It is also that work that would spawn the ever-infamous Trader Sam's Bar, which opened in May 2011. But Crump's infamous style just doesn't lie in the Tiki Room. It can also be found in other immortal classics like The Haunted Mansion. It would be the combination of Raleigh Crump and all of his imaginative and weird yet whimsical art with the technical know-how of Yale Gracie, who was an Imagineer, writer, and layout artist. It was while working on these sketches and ideas for the mansion that Walt would decide he was also going to create a museum of the weird, which would feature all of Crump's wacky and wonderful art. Disneyland and Crump would have had the museum too, but it hadn't been for the sudden passing of the immortal Disney in 1966. After the company resumed work on the park, the Museum of the Weird concept was scrapped. However, some of these pieces that were destined for the museum ended up in the Haunted Mansion, such as the grandfather clock and the smiling gargoyles that greet you in the stretching room. As fun and important as that art is to us Disney fans, there's one piece that is arguably as known or almost equally as iconic as Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella Castle, the It's a Small World facade. Together, him and Mary Blair would create the infamous facade. Raleigh designed it and drew it, and Mary Blair went back and traced it and filled it in with a very unconventional color palette for the time. It was while showing Walt this mini-model for It's a Small World that he suggested Raleigh add a clock that would come out and change every 15 minutes. Thus, the facade was finally as we know it today. Later in life, Raleigh would serve as the artistic director for Disneyland. Raleigh, who was known to be a rebel, is often recounted driving his Porsche through Tomorrowland of the 60s. Though he was known for his eccentric style artistically, he was just as unique in personality. During one of those Saturday classes previously mentioned, he was tasked to make a Christmas card in the stylings of an old block print. He went and found an old lithograph with an Indian that said, "Smoke tobacco." Crump, being the jokester he was, went home and copied that style. Instead of "smoke tobacco," it said "smoke marijuana." Eventually that poster would end up on Crump's door at WED. People who stopped at his office often would say, "If you ever get any of those cards made up, I'll buy one." Crump asked if they'd spend $1, and they agreed. so Crump went to have some made at a local print shop. The man behind the counter said he couldn't do it because the print was illegal. Anything pro-marijuana was illegal at the time. Crump laughed and convinced him that it was just a joke, a tongue-in-cheek gag, per se. It was moments like this that Crump was known for. He was crass, honest, but always unapologetically himself. This is just a very brief and overview of the man, the myth, and legend that is Raleigh Crump. At the time of this recording, Raleigh is 90, and his son Chris is also an Imagineer like his father. Raleigh Crump is by far my favorite Imagineer, and I hope you've enjoyed learning a little something about his life. Please feel free to subscribe, like, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future.